Boxing Truth here. I wanted to talk a little bit about Shane Mosley, one of the legends in boxing. He was my second favorite fighter to watch in the 1990s growing up while watching boxing. And at 44 years old, Shane Mosley is still going, refuses to hang up his gloves, refuses to acknowledge that he's past his best days. And he is past his best days, but he's got some left. He still has a little left to perhaps just to see if he can compete with one of the champions in the welterweight or junior middleweight divisions. Anyways, it was recently reported that Shane Mosley is eyeing a world title shot, and he's saying he's in negotiations. He didn't say too much, but that he's very close to a world title shot. And I'm trying to figure out who and who's he talking about. It's hard to tell because is it at the welterweight, junior middleweight divisions? Now, in the junior middleweight division, he was in negotiations with Liam Smith, the belt holder for the WBO, I believe. I think it's the WBO. He's promoted by Frank Warren, but the fight didn't materialize. So that's a possibility that he's talking about Liam Smith. He's talking about perhaps returning in April, and now ever since he's returned, since knocking out Mayorga for the second time, and also he just recently fought in December at the WBA convention in Panama. He knocked out Patrick Lopez, French guy, experienced guy, but nothing special. But he's currently in negotiations, and he's been saying that he's been getting a lot of phone calls, that there's interest because he's still a big name in the sport, and it'd be interesting. It's still there's fighters out there that could perhaps want to put a Shane Mosley name on their resume. But however, he's still a risky fight because there's still dynamite in his right hand. There's still power in his left hook. He still throws good body shots. The speed is not what it once was. He still does that jittery shit. I hate that stuff that he does with. I hate watching Shane Mosley shadow box. It's funny as hell, but it makes you wonder why the fuck do you do that? You don't even do that. He does it in fights too, but I scratch my head. Why does he do that jittery shit with when he shadow boxes and in the ring as well? However, Shane Mosley, he's looking healthier now. I mean, about a couple of years back, his speech wasn't good. He was slurring his speech. It was really hard to understand some of the things he was saying. But now, if you watch his interviews now, in the past year, he looks a lot healthier. He's speaking a lot clearer now. His speech is a lot better. He's not slurring anymore. I don't know what he did, but he looks, he's much more articulate now. He's not as punchy anymore. And he said that he's feeling very healthy. He's recovered for some injuries that have hampered some of his performances, as he claims in the Manny Pacquiao fight and the Canelo fight, and also the Anthony Modine fight where he quit on his stool. And he looks healthier. He's still in good shape. He's 44 years old, going to be 45 in September. And he still wants another crack at one of the top guys, either at welterweight and junior middleweight divisions. I have no idea who's he talking about he's in negotiations for a world title shot in April. He didn't say too much on who. But he stated in the past that when it comes to Al Haymon fighters, he won't fight Sean Porter because he's too close. He spars with him regularly, so he won't fight Sean Porter. He's willing to fight some other Al Haymon fighters, but he claims that Al Haymon won't let any of his fighters near him. So it's hard to get some fights, and he's having hard times. He's having a hard time getting a name opponent in the ring with him because a few reasons. I mean, he's not really tied to any promotional company right now. He's doing his own thing. He's pretty much promoting himself, so he can pretty much fight anybody. There's no political dividing line separating for him from getting fights. However, he's 44 years old. He can still punch, and also the networks haven't aired one of his fights in a long time, HBO or Showtime. So it's kind of tricky about it's tricky getting a big fight. But I'd be interested to see Shane Mosley in a few fights. I still think there's a few guys he could beat, considering his age. If he fights at welterweight too, I mean, there were talks about an Algieri fight in the past. I think a Berto fight will be good for him. A few other fighters. I would like to see him fight. Be nice to see if he could get a shot at Thurman or something like that. Just to see if what he got. If he can, I mean, I think Mosley can test him more than any of the previous opponents Thurman's had. I mean, besides Diego Chavez and a chop-worn Luis Collazo. I still think Mosley, because Mosley's very seasoned, very experienced. He still has power in his hands. Still a dangerous fight. I mean, it's still a risky fight for any top fighter to take because Mosley, he still has the power and the experience to compete with some of these guys. Now, will he be favored to beat any of these guys? Probably not. But it's still a risk that I think the handlers of these top fighters are not willing to take. So that's why it's hard to get these big fights. But yeah, Shane Mosley was my second favorite fighter to watch in the 1990s. He blew me away with his performances at lightweight. He was destroying everybody. He made eight successful defenses at lightweight. But the only disappointing thing about Mosley in his lightweight run was that he didn't unify. He didn't fight the bigger names in the lightweight division. The best fighter he fought was Jesse James Leija, and he stopped him. He had great performances at lightweight, destroyed everybody, like Gennady Golovkin style, but he didn't fight the name fighters. He didn't fight Paul Spadafore. He didn't fight Stevie Johnson. He didn't fight Angel Manfredi. He didn't unify, and he simply just made some eight defenses, cherry-picked a couple of opponents, and then he moved up to fight the money guy, the cash cow at the time, Oscar De La Hoya. No knocking that. But it wasn't until he lost that he really started to take big risks in his career. Besides the jumping up 2 divisions to fight De La Hoya in a big money fight. Of course, any fighter would do that. But after the De La Hoya victory, he started cherry-picking again, started fighting lower-class opposition like Adrian Stone and Antonio Diaz. And then it took him forever to unify with Vernon Forrest. And at that time, I was still upset. I was still reeling from the Trinidad loss to Hopkins. He was my favorite fighter of the 1990s, favorite fighter to watch. And I was still reeling from that loss, the knockout loss Trinidad received to Hopkins. And I wanted Shane Mosley, who was being really amped up at the time as probably the best fighter at the time since Trinidad lost. I mean, you had to consider Roy Jones, but Roy Jones' career was also disappointing because he's another story. But he went into the Forrest fight as a huge favorite, ended up losing, got his ass whooped in the fight, did well in the first round. Forrest was an amateur rival of his who beat him in the amateurs, and he ended up losing to him decisively. And then Mosley's career changed after that loss. He was never considered the best fighter or one of the best fighters at the elite top 3 pound for pound level type after the Forrest loss. He started taking risks all of a sudden. He took an immediate rematch with Forrest, shitty fight, ended up losing again, but not as decisively. It was just a more boring fight. Was able to beat De La Hoya in the rematch, close, controversial fight. Tested positive for a banned substance following that fight. Well, it was reported. He admitted in court that he did some enhancements. His career has been linked to PEDs. And then he lost to Winky Wright, ruining the fight with Trinidad, which is one of the fights that I, to this day, shake my head because it was so close to happening. It would have been a great fight, but Winky Wright ruined it. He ruined that fight, dominated Mosley. Then he did a ballsy move again, made the rematch, lost in a closer fight. He was more competitive this time, landed some big shots, but Wright was just too big, too good defensively, and just in a southpaw style that was just too much for Mosley to handle. And then his career just wasn't. After those losses, he started taking fights. He took money fights with Vargas. Looked good against Collazo. And then by the time he fought Cotto, he was already 36 years old and past his best. And then the rest is history. He looked good. He had odd on and off performances. Knocked out Mayorga. Looked tremendous against Margarito. Didn't do shit against Floyd besides win I think it was the second round or third round big where he hurt him. Arguably lost to Sergio Mora. Didn't do shit against Pacquiao. Dominated by Alvarez. Alvarez landed some hellacious shots in that fight. Mosley showed his toughness. Didn't get knocked out. And that was the turning point of Mosley's career, that first Vernon Forrest loss. I mean, he had some moments of highs and lows, but it was mostly lows. He kept losing the bigger fights. He had some highs where he was the underdog against Margarito and knocked him out. Had some money fights. But he was no longer the fighter that I grew up watching in the 1990s and before he fought Vernon Forrest. There was a lot of carefully selected opposition. He looked sensational at lightweight. He had a lot of misses at that weight. Welterweight, his reign post De La Hoya was just not impressive. Couldn't beat the best fighter he fought at that weight in Vernon Forrest in his prime. And now he's still going. He still wants to prove that he still has it. I've seen his last fight. He still has the power. He still throws hellacious shots. Throws a lot of shots with bad intentions. He still got some left. If you've seen the footage where he's sparring with Sean Porter, he has some moments. He even rocked Porter with a shot. So the guy can still compete. He just needs an opportunity to see what he really has left. He's saying that he's in talks for a world title shot soon. I don't know who is he talking about. Maybe it's Liam Smith, Danny Garcia. I doubt it. I just don't see how Al Haymon's going to take that risk to put one of his young star fighters in there with him, because he's not going to be able to manipulate Mosley. He doesn't have control over Shane Mosley. He's not going to be able to tell Mosley, "Yo, take it easy on my guy." So no, I don't see Al Haymon taking that risk. But I don't mind seeing Shane Mosley fight Pervannikov or Marquez, or I don't need to see him fight Pacquiao or Mayweather again, but I don't mind seeing him fight one of those guys, like a Pervannikov or a Marquez or even a Thurman. It would create headlines. It would be people would tune in. It would be interesting. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Who's he talking about? Who do you think he's negotiating with? This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.